You are listening to an audio blog from Hoaxlines. Pro-Kremlin sources react to HIMARS with everything from comparisons to Hiroshima to denying they're helpful at all. HIMARS leave an impression, no pun intended. The M142 High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, shorthanded as HIMARS, is a full-spectrum, combat-proven, all-weather, wheeled precision strike weapon system. RT went so far as to compare the impact of HIMARS in Russian-occupied territory to Hiroshima, the location where the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb known as Little Boy during World War II. The strike killed between 70,000 and 135,000 people. HIMARS are not comparable to atomic bombs. Still, perhaps the story conveys more about the emotional response Russia is having to the HIMARS. The frustration of the Russian military and erosion of morale permeated from pro-Kremlin spaces. In the U.S., the Washington Post ran the headline, "Shorten the War, Send 60 HIMARS to Ukraine." Assessing how much of the messaging reflects genuine sentiments is difficult because pro-Kremlin channels often forward content widely. Some of the information operations like Cyber Front Z and Reddit assign tasks or perspectives to push on social media. For this reason, perspectives can seem more unified than reality. Still, at least some of the despondent HIMARS-related posts seem genuine. In some cases, the commentary depicted Russia in an unflattering light and hoped for a change of strategy. One exasperated poster said, "There was an explosion in Novaya Kakhovka. Used HIMARS. Is there really nothing you can do about it? And it's only 8 HIMARS at the front. They already have us here. And what will happen next?" Pro-Kremlin channel Military Informant, which has 450,000 subscribers, delivered a grim assessment of Russia's options for responding to the HIMARS. Thus, for the fight, it was necessary to carry out a whole range of preparatory measures in advance. In the current conditions, it will take years, at best months, which is already too late. The physical destruction of such missile systems requires a developed reconnaissance system, primarily aviation, as well as control over the battlefield at least a couple of tens of kilometers deep, which is impossible without many light AWACS aircraft. It is really possible to paint for a long time, but in the current situation, we do not see a universal and quick solution to the problem that has arisen. Extremist group Rusik lamented the lack of air defense, suggesting it could be treason that, quote, jingoistic patriots had not come to their aid. Here's a sampling of a few more pro-Kremlin responses to HIMARS. "I don't know the real statistics of the HIMARS strikes on the Allied ammo depots and command centers, but neither does Strelkov or residents and Western self-congratulatory circle notwithstanding." End quote. A message that originated from Slavigrad referred to HIMARS as very serious weapons. Telegram channel MiG-41 seemed candid, telling readers, "With such approaches as we have now, we are talking about the rear, which is not even officially named rear yet. It is very easy to defeat Ukraine, but it is absolutely impossible. Almost half of the world's GDP. Draw your own conclusions. P.S. I would like to hope that approaches will still be changed." End quote. The author seemed to imply Russia could defeat Ukraine, but not Ukraine plus half of the world's GDP. MiG-41 hoped for a change in the Russian approach given their current predicament. Word of the HIMARS, their impact and specifics surfaced in Transnistrian channels. A Russian channel with well over 600,000 subscribers told readers about a rumor that Ukraine was planning to strike Crimea, but was stopped by, quote, foreign partners. The Post asserted Russia would declare war if that happened, which doesn't necessarily demonstrate how that would change things for Ukraine. Russia continues framing the war as with US and NATO. So the other element of the Russian response, besides being rocked by the HIMARS, was to portray those weapons as having taken civilian life. Russia neglected to acknowledge that the HIMARS are being used by a sovereign state to expel foreign invaders, meaning the use of the HIMARS, insofar as international law is considered, is lawful. Ukraine would not be firing them if Russia were to retreat from Ukrainian land. President Zelensky of Ukraine reported Russian attacks on apartments just days earlier. The UN Secretary General ordered an investigation into the killing of Ukrainian children on July 11th. Another pro-Kremlin channel depicted an emotional scene. Quote, as a result of attacks by Ukrainian Nazis on Novokakhovka, a disabled teenager who was on duty at a warehouse with humanitarian aid died. Russia has for years made false claims about Ukrainian military or paramilitary groups attacking Russian speakers. No evidence supports the claim. Denials and distractions in the rear. After responses to the HIMARS triggered public discussion, content also started to downplay the HIMARS' ability to alter the course of the war. On a pro-Kremlin channel with a few thousand readers, the author reassured, our air defense is able to shoot them down. Again, the Wunderwaffe did not save the armed forces of Ukraine. The popular pro-Kremlin channel Rybar told readers that Russia had arranged to buy a HIMARS from Ukrainian defectors. Rybar teased with details of an alleged plan to acquire American weapons and asserted that public confirmation would come shortly. Quote, the method of transmission chosen is extremely funny. To leave the launcher in a barn in the gray zone so that Russian military personnel accidentally stumble upon it during the sweep. This claim, like so many others that have appeared since the renewed invasion began in February, is unsubstantiated by evidence. Experts believe that Russia may be trying to erode Western support for Ukraine by depicting Ukraine as corrupt, as the aid not going where it needs to go, etc. The idea a HIMARS would be sold to Russia seems nigh impossible, but on the off chance they were to commandeer one, they would lack access to ammunition. Putin downplays war crimes and ignores extreme costs. Russian state media quoted Putin on July the 7th saying, we hear today that they want us to be defeated on the battlefield. Well, what can I say? Let them try. We haven't even really started anything yet. End quote. Saying we haven't even really started anything, which is what the state media have highlighted with the headline, seems a strange way to frame the situation. This has been a brutal assault waged in a neighboring country for 4 months that is all but certain to bring extreme economic hardship to most Russians, to Russia, and has likely cost at least 40,000 soldiers' lives, but that could easily be much higher. The Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation commented on Putin, implying the war didn't amount to much. Quote, during the Second World War, Japanese Admiral Yamamoto said, as soon as you start lying that the war was not serious, consider that the war has